Netflix has completed 10 years in this country. It's a momentous occasion. And like our MC just said, I'm going to traverse this journey with Monica Shergill, who's the Vice President Content at Netflix, and also keep a keen eye on the future. But I think a wonderful place to start would be how Netflix has really furthered the story of homegrown voices, local voices, and made them international. How Netflix has championed and contributed to the Indian economy by filming in various states and nooks and crannies of India, and how it continues to further its growth along with the growth story of the Indian media and entertainment industry. So all eyes on the screen, please. It's just a couple of minutes and audio-visual.
नेटफ्लिक्स कौन चालू किया रे?
एक बात तो पता है मुझे कि लोग क्या सुनना चाहते हैं, उन्हें किस चीज में मजा आता है, और वो मैं कर सकता हूँ।
Since 2021 through 2024, we've invested in India in a way that has created $2 billion of economic impact from our productions. So 20,000 cast and crew jobs from our productions in India. I think India is on the cusp of a very big inflection point for movies, for its storytelling.
अगर कोई चीज पूरी फैमिली के लिए फिट है तो हिंदुस्तान में हिट है।
पिक्चर तो सालों से बाकी है, लेकिन शो अब शुरू होगा। The biggest, the baddest, bravest, wackiest, funniest, cheekiest, maddest, filmiest show on earth। और शो का टाइटल है
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome one of the most inspirational and brightest leaders that we have in the media and entertainment sector in this country, Monica Shergill, Vice President Content at Netflix India.
Thank you, Rishi, for that really wonderful, kind introduction. Hello, everyone.
You know, this session is not about me, it's about you and Netflix and, of course, Vicky Frames. But I almost feel that I'm equally invested in 10 years of Netflix. And I'll tell you why in just a couple of sentences. It was exactly this time, 10 years ago, when your global head of communication walked into my studio and we did an interview on the upcoming launch of Netflix in India. And remember, he came with these wonderful little gift subscription cards. And on my radio show, we gave them away to prospectively the first 15 or 20 subscribers to the service. And that is history. So I feel very invested in this. And thank you and the streaming service for giving us so much joy with what you put out. Yeah.
Thank you, Rishi. And I really think that this both the session and the 10-year journey which we hit in coming January is actually more about the audiences in India. I think the fact that we have such an entertainment-loving country, that's why we have storytellers, because we love entertainment and we have so many stories to tell, and that's why we are here, and that's why everything we do every single day, finds meaning not just here but all across the world.
You're a modest person, and despite all your achievements, you seldom talk about yourself. It's always brand speak, but I'm sorry, I'm going to start with a loosener question, and it's on you, just to loosen everybody up. Monica, you began your career as a journalist, as a filmmaker, and to me that's very exciting because from the personal comes the collective. How has that shaped your lens for storytelling at Netflix?
Yeah, I feel very uncomfortable speaking about the journey because all of us have our journeys which are ordinary till they become special. And, I just feel that I always wanted to be a journalist from when I was in school. I used to see The World This Week on the black and white television, and I used to look at all the journalists and see them reporting from different parts of the world. I think what struck me even at that point was that every story, every issue was actually about the people behind that. And that is something that stayed with me. What is the truth of people? What drives human behavior? I just wanted to tell stories, wanted to reach out to people. And so I started out as a journalist, but I made that switch because I wanted my stories to last longer and to touch deeper. And I think that is something which really mattered to me. And that's when I made the switch to entertainment. But every story that I look at from the lens of characters, the people in that story, the world they inhabit, how are we mirroring society. And I think it's such a powerful medium that we are so privileged to be a part of, that we get to touch people's lives, bring them joy, spark conversations. So I often say in my office that I cartwheel to work. And I tell my team that if you're not cartwheeling to work, maybe you should be doing something else.
Like that, cartwheeling to work. A decade. And what I've always admired your service, your streaming platform, is you take a local hit and you make it a global hit. Would you look back at a moment and say, this is what the economists call inflection point, a single moment where Netflix India's arrival happened on the global stage?
I think I agree there's an inflection point in every business and every, maybe even lives, when you move from one thing to another. But I also believe that every inflection point is a function of so many, milestones, extraordinary moments that have actually come together and made a moment possible. So would I say the inflection point was Sacred Games, very boldly opening the doors to Indian storytelling, which went global, and 2 out of 3 people that watched Sacred Games watched it from outside India. Would I say it was the International Emmy for Delhi Crime Season 1, or Veer Das being the first comedian getting an International Emmy? Would I say RRR and Gangubai exploding across the world on people's screens? I remember when I saw Natu Natu on the Oscar stage, and we knew what that journey was because we were seeing how RRR was going everywhere through, on the platform. And Hira Mandi and, Kapil Sharma being viewed in so many countries, and Amar Singh Chamkila. And now with the upcoming nominations for Diljit and, Best Film nomination for Chamkila. And now Bads of Bollywood just making waves everywhere. Sayara being loved in Sweden and, breaking the charts across the world. So I think there are so many things that actually build upon each other and contribute to this massive sort of wave of stories traveling. And I think that is what is fascinating to see.
Well, my job is to fill in the blanks, and just to fill in the blanks here, Delhi Crime won an international Emmy, and Elephant Whisperers won an Oscar. So I think a round of applause there. I think it's extraordinary and remarkable that an Indian streaming service would, in such a short span of time, make such rapid inroads to international award ceremonies.
And if I can add, Rishi, what really delights me is to see how Indian storytelling is actually being consumed all over the world. Last year itself, we had 3 billion hours of Indian content being viewed. That's 60 million hours every week. That's staggering. And every week we are on the global non-English top 10. And when we see the Indian titles really there, and 15% of the titles that are there on that list are actually Indian titles last year. And it's, the same story continues this year. So that is something which really makes you feel that, yes, you're catering to your audience, but you're actually being a champion for your creators and stories around the world.
Which actually segues very beautifully into my next question. Like we just mentioned, I mean, here's Delhi Crime, Elephant Whisperers, recognized internationally by the community and beyond. How do you, and this is such a prime part of your job, how do you balance prestige projects with mass emotional stories, Monica?
That's a tricky one, but I also want to actually very honestly answer it. Because there is this false hierarchy that exists, that prestige shows, are better, and that things that entertain the masses are actually not as good. I think that false hierarchy, that divide, is not rational in a world where the medium of streaming actually allows you to reach the maximum number of audience. In a medium which was a push medium, people had no choice or limited choice. They would watch what they would get. But streaming is a medium where it's like swimming in an ocean, right? You are in an ocean of content, and you have to pull stories towards you. We will, as a platform, aid the experience, the discovery, but you have choices, and when a creator or a storyteller has the option of reaching the widest possible audience, why would you choose to only reach a small audience? And it doesn't mean that prestige titles cannot be loved, I feel that when I look at stories, for me what's most important is to see that can this story be both layered and deeply crafted, and can it be widely loved? If it's together, it's the best form of entertainment. The greatest entertainment is when you've actually, as a filmmaker or a storyteller, carried your message that you're so passionate about, and you've made more people watch it, more people experience it, not less people. So of course there will be stories that will be more niche, but the medium allows you to actually say everything that you are passionate about, but to also reach out the widest possible audience.
Monica, I've known you for a while, and I know that what interests you beyond everything else, beyond the revenue, the business, and everything, is cultural resonance. And that is really a barometer for somebody like you. So my logical question is, how do you measure cultural resonance? What tells you, hey, this show is connecting?
Very interesting. Actually, that is something which is, you can't plan for it, It's something that happens. Because after you've made something, it's the audience, people who love stories, who embrace it in different ways. But there are things that help you understand that. So I think the first thing is engagement. What we look at usually is how many people start watching a story. Do they stick to it or not? How fast are they completing it? But more than just engagement, when something leaps out of your screen and enters the conversation, if you and I are sitting in a coffee shop, if we are, meeting friends or family, when we ask those questions that, did you watch that? What did you think? Oh, I thought this, and I believe this, and I enjoyed that. When stories start impacting our everyday conversations, they bring that crazy amount of joy to us. When we are divided about something, no, I believe this, I didn't like it, but I liked it. That is when you know that, a story has transcended the screen And actually, it has gone into people's everyday life. The reels, the memes, what's happening to Bads of Bollywood right now. You know, it's breaking the internet. Everyone's talking about so many. They're finding hidden agendas and stories and moments, which are, it's a delight to watch, you know. So that is something, the way Hira Mandi actually broke into, you know, impacted the fashion, music. Amar Singh Chamkila, it had 19 songs. Which film, whether in theaters or anywhere else, has 19 songs? You know, and I should share this with everyone actually, that globally in streaming, there was a belief that no, songs don't work because streaming is a very lean-in experience. But when you put something in the right way with the story and it's woven into the fabric of the story, that is when you will experience the story and you will not even know that when a song starts, when it ends. And Chamkila actually became the precursor to how Netflix experienced the K-pop Demon Hunters very recently, where the songs have again become global chart busters. So I feel that when the audiences take a story on, a show or a movie, and they become more passionate about it, and they find, you know, when talent breaks out, like Lakshya's, who's in Bads of Bollywood, the lead, his Insta following is increased by 1 million. Taha, who played Tajdar, he went from, I think, under 200K to 2 million plus within a span of 2-3 weeks. So how talent breaks out, how conversations and reels and memes and stories happen, and you know, the audiences give life. That is when we call it the Netflix effect. The tourism in Paris went up with Emily in Paris. Bridgerton, you know, started a whole host of, you know, passion around what do you call it, the period dramas and romance in period. So all of these stories, you know, they really they go from screen to your life. And that's how, you know, cultural resonance happens. So when you have authenticity and you marry it with scale, that is when you actually become culture defining. And for us in Netflix, we've had a lot of stories in India which have actually now completely become culture defining. I'm very excited about Kurukshetra also coming because that is Mahabharat retold with Gulzar's, you know, poetic rendition and the phenomenal sort of, you know, the scale at which that animation happens. And it's going to take you through 18 chapters, 18 days of the Mahabharat war, very fascinatingly told.
But just to let all of you in into a small part of the mind of Monica Shergill, I'm going to narrate a little anecdote before we go into the next question quickly. Well, Elephant Whisperers had just won an Oscar, and Monica's team had hired me to MC the principal protagonist, the Mahoots, coming back with the Oscar along with the producers, and they needed to be celebrated. And just before the event, I remember asking Monica, I said, do you have a brief to give me? And she said, Rishi, there's just one line. I mean, it's great that you speak Tamil, and the principal protagonists can't, the Mahoot, the elephant caretakers. But remember that you have to be the bridge between the Tamil-speaking people on stage and the rest of us, and include everybody in the conversation and the event. And that gave me an inkling into her mind. And now that's segueing into the larger question, which is regional cinema, you know, and regional cinema is now national. I love that.
And international.
And international. I love that even now I could watch Game and Test again and again. There's Tamil, there's Telugu, there's Malayalam, those titles finding audiences across India and the world. How do you decide which stories travel beyond the language?
You know, it's a mix of judgment around what a story is and how widely it could resonate. And also, I think it's a belief and a responsibility that you have to make more stories travel. So while we always, and at Netflix, we, subtitle in around 37 languages for global consumption. 70%, and I'm not exaggerating, 70% of consumption of stories on Netflix globally happens in subs and dubs, which means stories, rarely say this. I think once before I've said this. I don't know how many of you have seen the map when you are flying and you see that airline magazine and you see the world map where the flights are going back and forth and it's the busiest map ever. That's what happens on Netflix. Just picture Netflix. Anyone sitting in any part of the world is actually clicking play and staying to watch a story, and that's happening around the world, and 70% of consumption is happening like that. So it's really thrilling, it's very exhilarating to see that. So when we look at such phenomenal stories from south of India, we lean in, even with smaller films. The bigger films, we always take Hindi dubs, we do so many dubs. Dubs and subs across for all the titles so that audiences around the world can enjoy them. But even smaller stories like A Court, State versus a Nobody, Mirlagan, and Officer on Duty, you would typically not expect that we would want to buy Hindi dubs. Maybe they are very hyper-local stories. But there are gems being made everywhere, and if you give them an opportunity, they actually really travel and more people are able to experience, and we are seeing that on Netflix. That's how stories are actually becoming language agnostic, and more people have the ability to enjoy them.
As a journalist in my heart, I just love meeting writers, especially writers who have roots in small towns. And, the story of people like Trishant Srivastav, who wrote Jamtara, Saurabh Khanna.
And IC814.
Yeah, who wrote Mamla Legal Hai. I think these are just so inspiring. And that's part of the agenda in India, isn't it? I mean, that's where you lead from the heart. So it's a two-pronged question I'm going to ask next. One obviously deals with Netflix's creative training and mentorship programs. What ecosystem gaps you're trying to fill. And the B part of that is, how you're finding writers and directors from outside the metros, which is so important.
No, it's very, very important. If we have to stay creative, if we have to stay competitive on the world stage, I think it's really important to get original voices, and original voices that belong to the heartland, that come from different parts of India and are open to really, bringing their voice and their passion for storytelling. And we actually train a lot of the writers. We have this internal program called the Grow Creative, where we bring in showrunners and creators from across the world. We hold workshops. We've done multiple in Hindi. We've done in South languages. We also had the NFDC, 100 women screenplay training. So we try to bring in, and not just for writers, but for technicians across. Because I think if we have to make sure that Indian stories really continue to travel and continue to be extremely original and imaginative, we have to get more. I don't think we are doing nearly enough to get original voices. I do feel that more studios, more producers, and more creators have to actually beef up their own teams. They have to, because it's very hard for us as a platform to be the only place that is, finding through different means. We will constantly be on that journey, but I think the real power lies in the hands of existing creators and filmmakers to bring in more newer, fresher talent and studios. And I think we have enough programs that we can really nurture that talent. But I think India is a very large country. We have many stories, we have many voices. We have to create, and maybe Fiki, Waves, all of these. Even now, my team is sitting here listening to pitches. So, as we are having this conversation. So I think it's really important that we find and give an opportunity to more talent in India.
Now, this is my most special question in the list. There's so many people who tell you, hey, this is a risk. Your gut instinct is something that obviously is always there speaking to you, but you've got to use cultural resonance, data, all those things. Which creative risk you greenlit surprised you by its success? And you said, wow, Monica, you didn't bargain for this, but this is pleasant.
That's not an easy one. It's a double-edged sword. But I think everything that you do in the entertainment space is fundamentally a risk because no one knows what's going to be successful. You can make a best case judgment depending on the genre it is, the clarity of the story, the vision and voice of the filmmaker. So creative risks are what we take every single day, multiple times a day. But if I have to pick out two that surprised me, though I knew they were great, but maybe other people were surprised with that also. But I would say the first one I would say for a reason, and that is Chamkila. We knew that we were extremely passionate about that story when Imtiaz and team came and Sajid and Imtiaz had written the screenplay. But you know, it was such a unique screenplay. Many people are familiar with the story of Chamkila and it was made before. But there was something about the way he was approaching, which was very risky. It was very uncomfortable but exciting for us. And you know, I felt between me and my team, Ruchika and me, we felt we wanted to lean into that risk because half the film was in Imtiaz's head. And then so many amazing people came together on that journey, from Irshad Kamil on lyrics, Rahman, Diljit, Pariniti, Sylvester Fonseca on, you know, as the DP, and Aarti as the editor, because the film is not simple. It was actually made on the table because the way it's been filmed, it was a very experimental film, and how beautifully it came together as a journey. We knew it was a very powerful film, but we didn't know it would become so cult. And now when it's got the nomination for the International Emmy, like that journey you can never predict. And of course, Kapil was another one. I always was passionate about bringing Kapil onto the service because, you know, great entertainment is all about being relevant to everyone, and family viewing is something very important on Netflix. We want to cater to individuals and families. So people were shocked that how can Kapil be on Netflix or Mamla Legal Hai, but that's the journey we are on. We'll have a Kora and a Black Warrant, and we'll have a Kapil and a Mamla Legal Hai and a Hira Mandi and a Bads, everything together. So that's what Netflix is all about.
So I've got the chit saying last question.
The chit.
I mean, we meet today to reflect and celebrate a decade of Netflix in India. What, according to you, lies ahead in the next decade, Monica?
I'm not a soothsayer or a crystal ball gazer, but I'm a very passionate and positive person. I can see that there's a lot of you know, churn happening. There's lots of opportunity. There's lots of fear also about technology coming. But one thing we know for sure, that you know, in a world that's so divided and uncertain all the time, this is not just a problem of this decade. Every time has been about that. There are different things that challenge us. I do note that where everything else may be dividing us, you know, stories are something that will continue to unite us. And Netflix is in the business of storytelling. We've been pioneers in streaming, and we've played a small part in actually bringing cultures closer to each other. The Indian media and entertainment sector is set to grow, I believe, to 70 billion plus by 2027, and more so as we go year on year. So it's a great future for the media and entertainment sector. Streaming is set to really become much more accessible and more of a habit than it already is. And stories are not going away anywhere. Stories are here to unite us and to, you know, really bring the joy and escape and comfort that we seek every day. So I have a great belief in that, and that's what we are here to do.
Thank you, Vicky Frames, for inviting us. Thank you, all of you, for
you.
being a wonderful audience.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the dynamic Vice President Content at Netflix India, Monica Shergill.
Thank you so much for this wonderful session. We will now break out